All right, well, let me get us kicked off. So thanks for joining. Today, we're going to talk about um, what we can call advanced service ops. And this is going to be focused around showing an end-to-end solution, some of the pieces of the ServiceNow platform that really lend themselves well to achieving better outcomes from an operations standpoint, no matter what kind of operating mode your company leans toward. Um, be it centralized or more decentralized, kind of DevOpsy. We're going to talk about specifically how can the ServiceNow platform help bring together a cohesive solution in terms of automation for ops, um, really beneficial practical applications of AI, particularly generative AI, and ServiceNow's ITOM suite of features. So I'm Matt. I'm from RapDev, and RapDev is an elite ServiceNow partner. We're going to quickly touch a little bit on what RapDev is all about. We also have KP here from ServiceNow, who's a specialist in all things ITOM and all things observability. So looking forward to getting into it. Feel free to make this a conversation. That's definitely a goal. Um, I know you might not be able to come off mute, throughout the entire call, but um, feel free to throw questions in chat. We have some people who might answer in chat as well, and I'll try to pull some out. We might answer some of those live. And yeah, we just want it to be a conversation and kind of see how this can be useful to you guys. Um, and hopefully, the goal is to look at ways to get um, better value out of these platforms that we use. Um, just briefly, let me talk about what RapDev and ServiceNow bring together here. So you guys know ServiceNow, you know the capabilities. We're going to talk more about that today. ServiceNow offers a lot of features, and a lot of it can be tied together in really cohesive ways to produce value that would be impossible in a lot of other platforms. And that's exactly where RapDev fits into that picture usually. We're an implementation partner, and so we're not focused on selling the ServiceNow platform. What we focus on is helping customers get to where they want to go with the investment that they've made in ServiceNow. And so we're doing implementations. We're consulting on best practices to get to those kind of outcomes. Uh, we have another poll here just to help us know a little bit more about you guys. And that is going to be a chance for you to tell us about yourself. Um, how would you describe your current role essentially? And so you see the options there. Um, if it's other, feel free to pick other. Um, but just want to kind of get a feel for what kind of group we're in today.
Yeah, this will be good to see where some of the audience sits. Are we on the SRE, the distributed team, or are we more centralized IT ops, or a little both? Probably wrap up the poll.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Looks like we're leaning toward engineer the most. Also some on like the service operations kind of side of things, and a good chunk of other. So for um, people who are putting other, hopefully this is beneficial to you today. Feel free to drop any questions you have, like I said, into the chat, and we'll look forward to answering those as we go. So just briefly, we're going to touch on what RapDev is all about, and then we're going to go through an end-to-end demo that ties together a lot of the capabilities that are available from ServiceNow in this space. And then we'll jump over to KP to talk a little bit about what is coming, some of the newer features in ServiceNow, and he'll get into those things. So RapDev is an elite partner. I talked a little bit about who we are. we have done a lot of implementations. We've worked in several different areas. One of the most common kind of areas that we're working in is this service ops kind of operations, SRE kind of DevOps world. A lot of the customers that we talk to and the challenges that we're solving every day in projects we're working on are, things like what's on this slide: a lack of automation, to make the environment that, in these complex environments, it can be difficult to get a clear answer sometimes when performance is not what we want it to be, or when we have manual processes, it can be tough to untangle those. Um, Another big one is, as a result, kind of along those lines, is fragmented asset and data quality gaps that can result in challenges from a CMDB standpoint, which can be a challenge from the kind of the overall platform value standpoint, for customers to get out of ServiceNow. And then the other two here that are mentioned really do kind of tie together. Um, One being a lack of clear visibility to what are the components that make up the services that we're trying to deliver to our end users every day, and being able to easily understand at a glance what is happening with those services, what their status is. When there's degradation, there are a lot of opportunities that we see usually working with the customers that we are with every day. I mean, it's opportunities around being able to fix issues faster when they come up. It's around being able to get people engaged more quickly. And it's around, that automation piece to help with ultimately making the user experience better, having less downtime, less toil overall, and being able to solve issues faster. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So, without spending a ton more time on this, I am just going to quickly flash up. We've worked with a lot of customers, probably customers that are in the same industries as a lot of you on the call, um, probably similar size to a lot of the people on the call, their organizations. And so, be happy to talk to you if there's something that you think we could help with. And just glad to be hanging out with you today and talking about some of the cool solutions that we're seeing in the platform. So with that, I'm gonna just quickly flash up this piece. I think Carlos is going to talk a little bit about the kind of maturity curve, and then we'll get into the demo here shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to follow up just right before we get into a demo, into really what everybody's looking to get excited about, right? Is kind of show me, don't tell me. But typically, where would you rate? This is the I would say one of the many famous artifacts generated by Gartner. And it's really around the operations overall process maturity, operations maturity. Again, whether you're in a centralized, decentralized paradigm, but reactive meaning, hey, you know what? Actually, we may be monitoring, but typically our users or consumers are actually telling us that there is a problem, right? That would be probably the more fundamental reactive state. And then as we get more progressive, we're starting to maybe get ahead of the curve, looking at anomalies or things using, machine learning, other, maybe other algorithmics to potentially start to surface up patterns before there's actual impact, and leveraging some level of automation. And that's starting to shift over to intelligent and kind of self-healing, right? Meaning it's lights out for the more well-defined issues that we know about. We may have automation to really take care of that. Unless the automation fails, then let's get an operator, an engineer, someone to get engaged. So with these kind of reactive, responsive, intelligent, self-healing, why don't we flash up from your perspective? What would you, just to get a gauge, where do you think you or your organization, where do you kind of where would you fit in that level 1, 2, 3, or 4? So just give a couple seconds here to answer that. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up the poll and see what the results are. Okay, yeah, and that's pretty typical. We're responsive level 2, where we see most organizations kind of either teetering between level 1, level 2, maybe starting to do some push, getting innovative, looking at raw signals and being able to understand patterns potentially before there's an impact, so we can start to get the right people involved. But okay, that's good to know. Matt, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, perfect. So like Carlos was just saying, right, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can try to get more and more proactive in terms of and predictive in terms of how we respond to these issues that are happening in our environments. So today we're going to run through a demo that covers a scenario exactly like this. I'll quickly flash up one slide that does show what the kind of scenario is that we're talking about, and that is essentially we're going to make a change to a production service. We're going to see how that change affects the performance of the broader system. In the process, we're going to tie in a bunch of data about those changes into ServiceNow. Um, Spoiler alert, it's going to break something. And so one of the things that we want to see is how does ServiceNow react to this? How does ServiceNow help pull together different sources of information to help us understand a cohesive story about what is happening, and then allow us to respond more quickly as a result. And so in the end, we're going to get down to, how do we respond to this issue? How do we quickly resolve what's been broken and get back to, what we want to do with our day, right? Which is not responding to putting out fires. So the target system that we're talking about today is essentially an e-commerce site. It has a bunch of different services that make it up. We have some products that we sell here, and when we click on a product, we see the product page. This is delivered by the product catalog service mostly. We have another service that is like the cart service. So if we add something to the cart, we can go into the cart and we can check out from there. There's a shipping service and tracking and so on that helps take care of different pieces like that. And back on the product page, you'll notice there's also a section down here that says you may also like these products. This is delivered by something called the recommendation service, which is actually the one that we're going to break today. And so this is a kind of focal point of the demo. And this is something that, in a lot of organizations, it can be very valuable because it's helping to drive up the cart totals in a retail environment like this. But these are the kind of things that can easily break on a website, and it might not be super obvious to us what caused it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a quick change to this service in GitHub. And then in the process, I'm going to introduce basically loop that causes it to stop working, but in such a way that it's not super obvious to a lot of kind of monitoring approaches what happened. So I'm adding that loop in that's going to break the service and cause it to stop working like it should. I'm not going to explain why I did this or what I'm doing in the message here. Part of what we want to see is how can we get intelligence out of the data that we do have and turn that into meaningful information that allows us to make intelligent decisions in the process of responding to an issue like this. So we're not going to assume that developers give perfect notes about why they did what they did. We're just going to put a comment here that is automatically generated. And the only thing I am going to do is I'm just going to put the reference number of the story that I'm working on. This is a Jira story. And so I'm just throwing in the story ID of the story that I'm working on right now. I'm not going to give any more context than that. And the story itself is super vague too. So we're not really giving ServiceNow any super helpful hints here as far as what is happening. So I'm going to go ahead and make that commit. We're going to move through this kind of quickly to make sure that we have time for the agenda today. So do feel free to throw your questions in chat as we go. And we'll make sure those get answered. So we made this commit. At this point, it's running in the background a pipeline that is deploying those changes to prod. One of the other things that we're doing here that is unique, there are two things that are happening right now. One is the change that the change that I pushed through the deploy that I just did. That pipeline is running. It's registering a change request in the ServiceNow using the ServiceNow plugin called DevOps Change Velocity. That's a plugin that essentially ties into your CI/CD pipelines, and you can see right here where it's explaining that it created a DevOps change for me. It creates a change automatically and brings in a bunch of rich data about what exactly did I change, so that anyone can use that data to help with understanding changes that have been done in the environment. For example, if there is an incident or something, we can use that to help us to better understand what's happening, better understand what changes have been made. So I can change automatically was created and it was automatically approved. That's another feature of that plugin, is approval policies, where we can automatically approve certain types of changes as long as they meet the criteria we have. The other thing that I'm going to point out, the second thing, is something called CSDM as code. This is a RapDev patented solution. And essentially what it is doing is it's giving us a way to declare the details about the services that I'm building in this repo, that I can put in the details about, what are these services called? How am I going to tag them? Who is responsible for responding to them, to issues if they break? Who is responsible for approving changes to them? Everything like that. And this is where you can see kind of the schema here. This is totally customizable in the implementation process, but it's something that can be very, very helpful from a perspective of decentralizing the management of CMDB, so that we're not chasing around trying to find these kind of details from various different dev teams. We give them an easy way in the tool they're already comfortable with to provide this information to us directly. So we have that in place. Now, what this actually does behind the scenes is it creates CIs in the right classes to represent these concepts that are being explained in this file that we're looking at right here. And in the process, it also does service mapping so that we end up in a place where we have a full service map that's been built. And that can even unify with the rest of the services that we have in our environment. So for example, my broader astronomy shop service that I have has a bunch of subcomponents within it, microservices, and those are being mapped to their components using the tags that we stated in the file. So these pods and Docker containers that are being mapped up underneath this service are there because they have the tags that are associated with that service. And so in here, what we're doing is we're merging together declared services with discovered CIs. And so that's where we can create this really cool kind of meshed view of exactly what our services are made up of. Now, all of this to say that from a DevOps perspective, where I am, right? If I'm sitting on the dev side, I might be moving on to the next story that I wanted to develop or whatever. And I saw my change was approved, so I'm probably ready to move on at this point. If someone is looking at this from the ServiceNow side, or if they are in that tool and they're managing it more from a process standpoint, they're actually able to see the pipelines that I have represented in ServiceNow. And so while that pipeline is deploying, there are various steps that are being carried out. That change was registered automatically, like we just talked about. We can see the actual steps that this went through starting 4 minutes ago, where it built an image, it created the change was approved, and then it went through the prod deploy process. And this can also capture along the way like any artifacts or test results that we have from various different like artifact repository tools and testing tools. Now the change that gets registered, this is another key to it, which is the depth of the data that we get. It's not just throwing a change out there with like the commit message or something like that. What it's doing is it's actually relating the CIs that are affected, which we can see here. We can see where it's applying intelligent change policies to these, which have various criteria. We can even see where it's relating the actual commit details and the story itself, which ServiceNow refers to as a work item. It's relating all these things to the change. And all of this leads to a place where we can get our first cameo from generative AI, which is an explanation of the change itself. We let the generative AI take a look at the code change that was actually made. And it's explaining to us, even for people who don't read Python or people who are not developers, they can come in here and they can see this change that was made and they can understand clearly what the exact details were. So it says it's not really clear why this was done, but it might intentionally keep the code in a loop. This modification could have unintended consequences and should be carefully considered. So we see these details where the AI explanation is clearly telling us, hey, this is kind of a risky thing that you're doing here. So from here, right, if I'm looking at this from the process side, I have very clear visibility into what's happening, very clear explanations, even if I don't read Python or if I'm not a developer. And so that helps a lot with the end-to-end visibility across the entire organization, right? Where a lot of times there can be silos that start to really exist between dev and ops or between dev and process teams. And so this is where we can help to start solving some of those silos and bringing down information silos that exist. A new channel just popped up in Teams. And so if I'm, working on the dev side, I see that pop up in Teams and I say, hey, what is this team that's just popped up under our chat ops group? I see there's an incident that's been created, and I get a quick summary here from AI helping explain what the most likely causes and solutions are. And the first thing it says is it's probably a loop in the code. So you should fix that. Pretty good guess. We can see like the affected services that are listed here. And so if I'm coming at this, again, we think of like the two kind of sides of what tools I might be comfortable in. If I'm a developer, I might be most comfortable responding to this from Teams, right? So I can come at this from Teams. And one thing that we implement for a lot of our customers is chatbots they can use to interact with ServiceNow from Teams or Slack. And so I can use this chatbot. I can add a work note. It's something like, I'll take it. I'm on call right now. Plus, I'm the one who just pushed the change. So I'm going to take this one. And if I'm on the other side, maybe I'm coming more from a process standpoint, I'm comfortable in ServiceNow. That's where I would come from. Then I can open this from the ServiceNow side, and I can easily see the same kind of details. And I can also see, oh, the task was assigned based on the current on-call resource. Here are the details. Oh, Matt just reassigned this to himself because he said he's going to take it, right? And so that's where we can see the Teams bot starting to help with collaboration and visibility across the larger organization. So we have an incident that was created here, but we see it's from a group of alerts. And this is where the tie-in comes with event management, right? Because we're tying into this from like a chat ops standpoint where we can interact with ServiceNow, we can interact with incidents from chat, from Teams, but we might also be coming from the other side. And so just to give you a little glimpse into what this came from, we have a group of alerts that were grouped here based on CMDB. It's possible because we did some clever things here with mapping that we just talked about. And so that mapping is now paying off for us because we have a CMDB based group here of alerts. And these alerts are coming from various different sources. If we look at the alerts that are in the group, we have a couple from different sources here. We have some alerts from cloud observability. So because this is OTel, right, this is one of the things where we're pushing that data to cloud observability, and it's noticing some issues here too. And we have a couple of other types of alerts that are coming in here. This is where we can see kind of some good details about, oh, there's one more down here from log analytics. So we can see some good details here in terms of what the issue is. It looks like the first one was actually this log analytics alert. And so this is where we can start to understand more about what exactly is happening here. If we're coming from this side, that's handy because, if I'm looking at it from the ServiceNow side, I can easily start to dig in and see when do these logs start, what all is happening here. But it's also a chance for us to be able to understand the bigger picture because we can see on the alerts themselves, on that group of alerts, we can see exactly which services are impacted, right? And that's the key. That's what everyone is going to care about at the end of the day, because that's what speaks to the bottom line, speaks to our customer experience or our user experience. And that's what we need to solve for. So we're going to jump into solving that, right? We can see here probable root causes being listed based on recent changes that were pushed out. And so we can actually see here the change that we just had a minute ago that we were looking at, right, is listed here among some other changes that have been done recently to this service. And they're put in the order of their the most likelihood for being the cause. And so this is where we get this nice conglomeration of data, right, where it's all coming together. It's helping us tell a clear story, and we can easily understand at a glance. We can see kind of the validation that, yeah, this is probably because of the change. On the chat ops side, I have more options. I can run more commands. I'll keep it kind of brief, right? Because at this point, I'm thinking, hey, there's obviously a problem that's been introduced here by the code changes. I'm going to go ahead and add a problem task for somebody to go research that in the next shift. And right now, I'm going to focus on fixing it and stopping the bleeding. So the first thing I want to do is, there's two things I want to do. I want to see how bad it really is and validate the issue. And then I want to look at what I can do to fix it. So one, I'm going to go back to my website. I'm going to see the main page loads. I'm going to pull up a product. I see the product loads. I see I can add it to the cart. I can move on through like the checkout process. But I want to know too, what is going to happen if I scroll down here. And this is where I see my recommendation service looking okay, but if I refresh it, it forces it to hard load. And now the recommendation service is missing. So this is exactly what I was worried about. Mine was cached a little bit there, it looks like, but not everyone is going to have that experience. And so there are going to be customers who are trying to load this and they see no recommendations there. Now I need to get into how I can fix this as fast as possible, right? So when I'm looking at this from the standpoint of teams and where I'm responding to this, I can still continue to take action here. I can go ahead and get a list of valid actions that I can take in response to this. And I get this pulled up. It tells me one of the things I can do is do a deployment rollback, right? This is based on the tech stack that we use, but we build different versions of these things for our customers based on their needs and the automation that's going to be the most useful to them. But that's exactly what I want to do. I want to do a rollback of that deploy that I did before, not because, that's going to fix the problem permanently, but it's going to stop the bleeding so that we know that we can go figure out what's wrong with the code later. We just need to make sure that our end users are not being affected by this, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and hit run rollback deployment here, and it'll confirm back to me once it actually kicks off that rollback. Meanwhile, on the website side, I can watch for this to take effect by forcing like some hard reloads here to make sure that this actually is loading now. So if we come back to a product page and we load it hard, now we can see that our recommendations are back. And so from the perspective of responding to this issue, at this point, I've been able to respond to it. I'm tying together all these different pieces of the platform. And there are some underlying pieces that we're going to talk about in just a minute with Carlos. But at the end of the day, what ServiceNow is enabling me to do here is to have a system that allows me to pull together all these different sources of information that all kind of have a piece of the picture, pull it all together in one place so that I can understand the picture very clearly, respond in a very efficient way to solve the issue. And then ultimately I can get back to my day job, which is not supposed to be all about fighting fires. And so at this point, that's where I can get back to looking at what's the status of the rest of my environment, right? Like I need to resolve these alerts that are coming against my, main service here. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll And then teams will send me a DM asking me to explain how I resolved it and what I did. So I get a card over here, and I'm going to say I did this with a workaround, manual rollback, p-task for code fix, and I'll submit that. And when I submit that, that's going to close everything out. We can see the incident getting updated, and then that will roll down, cascade, and close all of the alerts that were part of generating that incident. And it will turn my services back to green so that I can carry on with any other services that need to have some kind of response against them. And so that's where, we talked about visibility across the entire organization. The rest of the organization is able to see these services flipping into different states, depending on different criteria of, what they're being affected by, if there's an incident ongoing or anything like that. We also get full visibility here from a DevOps standpoint because we're connecting these tools in. We can see at a glance exactly what's happening across our entire environment. So I'll stop there. There might have been some questions along the way, and I'll hope to answer those. Feel free to throw more questions in if you have any. But I'm going to hand it to KP so he has some time to cover some of the latest innovations on the product.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, the fact that IT friction, right? There's none. You allow the personas to work out of the environment that they typically work out from a day-to-day perspective to get their tasks done, while updating with keeping the process flowing. So the incident resolution, raising problems, and also capturing any type of deployment to change, machine to machine change, is all kind of automated under the hood. That was awesome. I love watching the demo. So just finishing up my my popcorn here. So, all right. So if there are any questions, I think what we're going to do is kind of shift a little bit and talk about some of the experiences that ServiceNow has, and we're really starting to move forward to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over the share, if that's okay, Matt. And I'm going to share my desktop here, which is always a little dangerous during a webinar, but let me just move a few things around and then jump right into just a couple slides to talk about where ServiceNow is kind of moving from a end user experience, improving the overall experience and making things much more intuitive. So let me get to that. So from an AI ops perspective, and obviously AI ops, and there was some a bit of DevOps and even observability. Really, it's about, at the first, it's about ingestion, right? And this is really where ServiceNow has taken huge leaps, specifically in the last year, on trying to make the ingestion with just as easy as possible. And when we say ingestion, it's not just events. It can be time series, right? Metric data. I think what we do is we take in metric data, whether it's collected through, for example, our own agent client collector, a lightweight agent, or through one of our connectors, like a Dynatrace, which we can start to collect the metric data. And baselining is nothing new, but what we do to detect and surface up anomalies from a time series perspective is using multivariate analysis, right? Multiple KPIs that are kind of outside of what's deemed to be normal operations that are all tied back to some service, a microservice or an application service, a platform. We also, as what was shown in the demo, is really where we see the value of kind of raw messages or raw signals is logs. So if specific persona gets, whether that's a distributed team or a system engineer, and typically there's an issue that the events are already kind of symptoms of an issue. Typically, they'll go back and mine through application logs, et cetera. And that's really where we start to surface up. We have a ML engine that will start to look at patterns in real time. Even if you have a log analytics solution, it's really that proactive real time anomaly detection. So ingestion will kind of show where we really start to improve the onboarding of multiple signals very quickly. Second is enrichment. So it's all about having metadata so that we can start to improve the incident or reduce some of the truncation time or truncate those resolution times by leveraging metadata in the platform, custom data, even the event sources. Let's say it's a webhook, right? Within the JSON payload, there could be tag information. There could be valuable information that we can use for filtering, for clustering, right? Grouping of similar alerts that are related to an issue, or even insights or dashboard and things of that sort. Next, it's really around taking data, whether we really start to use time, some sense of the text or attributes or tags that we can normalize. And if you have topology, to really understand the business impact, right? The application, that blast radius. Just as we saw, probable root cause, just going back to what Gartner's said, is still relevant today. 80–90% of the time when something happens in the environment, it can be tied back to a change. Now, a change could be a traditional change. It could be a deployment, right, coming off of pipelines, as we saw in the demo today, or there could be also an unauthorized change. But either way, being able to surface that up in real time to at least identify where could there be the true cause of a problem, right? Because a lot of times events, something's already happened, right? We want to get ahead of the issue, and that's where anomaly detection can definitely get us to shift left. But at the end of the day, we want to understand what was the potential or the highest probability of where that change or the cause of the problem was. Next is really about responding or acting. And this is really where the DNA of the platform starts to come alive, so to speak. Because if you think about ServiceNow, we're a workflow platform. If you go to our ServiceNow store, we have now, in fact, we're at over 215 what we call integration hub spokes. That means we have a drag and drop flow designer where you can start to bring alive any kind of workflow, triage, remediation, collaboration, go communicate with all this rich metadata in an intelligent way to automation tools or platforms or orchestration tools and platforms to do some sort of action, but do it again with the understanding of the context, the affected parties and how big of an issue is, so that we're not doing some sort of action in a vacuum, but we can reach out and truly, I would say, make the most efficient workflow in the most intelligent way that we can. So, and at the end of the day, it's also about data insights where dashboarding and reporting, we want to, again, not just look at just a slice of the data, but be able to understand holistically, maybe across an enterprise, bring together these KPIs, bring up some of these surfaced insights, and so that can help us make even better decisions in the future. So, all right. So if we look at from our some of the enhancements we've made, this is nothing new over the last, I would say, year. All of our updates are provided through our ServiceNow store. You want to make sure anything that's deployed on the ServiceNow platform comes through the ServiceNow store. That means it's certified, it's verified by engineering, that the code will not have any kind of impact to the environment. So that's one thing to say. But as we release, typically updates are minimally made each quarter. And from an ingest, right, that first part, this is what we call our integration launchpad. Again, you don't have to be just a centralized IT operations team. We've now extended the use cases and personas that we know that there are distributed teams, there are site reliability engineers, there are, hey, you build it, you manage it, meaning that from a DevOps perspective, they can now start to control ingesting, enriching, clustering, maybe as a team lead versus going back to the I would say the more legacy centralized paradigm. We support both and they can both coexist. Next, we get into kind of the enrichment and grouping, again, through what we call the alert automations. Everything is done within within our service operations workspace. And it allows even, again, those team leads or the designated, maybe admins, so to speak, to enrich data, right? Maybe, again, parse out using regular expressions and get that validated right there as they're configuring things that could help downstream, right? For some kind of filtering purposes, for decoration, for clustering or grouping. And that's where we can kind of bring this alive within just a few clicks. One of the grouping things that's really neat that just came out in the last ServiceNow store, we're almost to the next one, meaning that every quarter we have an update where we're really pushing out new enhancements, new experiences, really simplifying the overall process. Our grouping alerts, or how to create, for example, tag clusters based on normalized alert tags or enrichment from the platform, we can actually simulate, which is kind of a new, I would say a newer feature that we just released, but we're enhancing that. So if I am a team lead and I'm trying to test out some correlation, I can use data that's already in the platform and kind of change some of my criteria, change one or more tags, and based on similarity that I want to group things in a real meaningful way, we can see that, and you can run the simulation, and then if that produces the right results, so to speak, based on data that's already been collected, then you can kind of continue, save that, or kind of redefine without having to wait for the next outage to happen or things of that sort. So a lot of enhancements, a lot more improvements coming in this direction as well. Okay, and as we get into the respond workflow, as I mentioned before, we're trying to simplify even the basic actions. So whether, again, I'm centralized or maybe I'm a decentralized team lead, being able to create, for example, incidents based on the attributes or the way that that I want to decorate the short description and populate maybe certain fields on the incident form and calculate maybe the priority based on impact and urgency, all that good stuff. Now that can be all done through a wizard, including some basic automation as well, without ever getting into Flow Designer and some of the things that many ServiceNow SMEs across the platform work with every day. But again, let's make this super simple, super intuitive to get to an endpoint. And we're absolutely, this is available as of September, beginning of September of earlier this month. And then we're just enhancing, adding more and more features so that you can get kind of your job and maybe some of those administrative responsibilities done very quickly. All right. So the next is really around the express list. So we understand that different personas, you can, as Matt showed you, you can respond and work out of the environment that you're typically working out of. Maybe that is in Slack or Teams, but we do provide what we call an express list. Each team can have pre-filtered views, all that good stuff. But the idea is that you can work very efficiently from a top list, get a preview. We'll kind of show, if we have some time here, show where the generative AI, that is a huge strategy of ServiceNow, from the top level Bill McDermott and kind of our strategy overall in the marketplace. But a lot of that gets surfaced up in a preview pane where I really don't need to ever leave a screen or drill down and take more time to resolve. I can do actions. I can see insights. I can see even an illustration of the topology or the correlation, I should say, all from one view. And that's our Express view, or Express list, I should say. But you have other ways of working and seeing insights, either through a dashboard or through kind of a services-based dashboard where you see various, I would say, widgets that can, really indicate that there's a problem. All right, and then kind of going along with the generative AI, we have Now Assist, right, our own LLM. And the benefit there is that it's mining data. So we have Now Assist for ITSM, Now Assist for Creator, Now Assist for ITOM. And there is just a very aggressive roadmap. Right now, we're looking at all the, for example, alerts that are related, that have been correlated together, giving you a summary, also looking at other things that may be related, maybe configuration items, other data that's in ServiceNow. But there is an aggressive, I would say, roadmap. I would say if there's any interest here, to reach out to maybe your ServiceNow account manager or maybe sales engineer to get some of those details, because there's text to code. There's, the idea is, how can we start to understand not only reoccurring problems, right? These are good candidates, but then also potentially bring solutions to automation, right? That workflow to market quicker to the automation team that's maybe already 80% complete. Maybe they need to put some guardrails around, and that's where we have, things like text to flow. There's text analytics. There's a lot that's coming over in 2025. So again, lots to be, I would say, to get ready for in the next few quarters. Okay, and I would say the last item that we didn't really get into with the demo is a new persona. So the service operations workspace is really meant to be that next experience. But as you log in or you go to this one workspace, based on your role, right, you're seeing issues. Maybe there's that one issue that Matt went through, but you're seeing it through the lenses of your persona. So you could be an agent, you could be a major incident manager, you could be IT operations, maybe more centralized. Now we've added another persona, the site reliability engineer. Again, all going to one place, but where, again, IT operations, they're looking at KPIs around maybe event management, around anomalies and impacts. The site reliability engineer may be looking at that same issue regarding the recommendation service, but they care about things like SLOs, SLIs, error budgets. So again, all going to the same place, seeing the same issue, but through the lenses of their persona. So now the site reliability engineer or the SRM app delivered through the ServiceNow store can easily be deployed and installed onto the instance, and providing, again, another view into the emerging issues, but that really aligns to a specific persona. Other things that we have are escalations, right? If there are people, or I would say engineers or other other folks that are part of a group and some sort of escalation that can be defined and how they're notified. And if they don't respond, there's an escalation that's occurred, kind of what was traditionally alert management. We're now providing and making that very easy for teams at a team by team to manage those escalations and how they're notified and things of that sort. All right. And then lastly, it's all about insights. Platform analytics is really the next generation. If you're familiar with ServiceNow performance analytics, it's now being able to not only take all the KPIs that are relevant to really get better insights, right? It's data across the platform that may be relevant for understanding problems, looking at trends, looking at anomalies, and are we seeing an uptick of incidents now that we're seeing certain teams do more and more deployments through pipelines. Anything that can all be aggregated and then shared from a self-service perspective, meaning that each team, each individual can mine their own dashboards. You can share it across multiple teams, but then that can also be viewed right in that service operations workspace. So almost that one-stop shop, allowing you to do administration, allow you to kind of manage the operations from your persona, and then obviously being able to consume those insights across the platform that may be really relevant to your day-to-day job or to your persona. All right, with that said, let's see, how much time do we have, Matt? I think we got about 4 minutes. So
we got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think we'll just kind of wrap it up here. But some of the things that we saw, these could be dashboards where it could really align to various personas, just to kind of do kind of a quick view. Onboarding, right? Remember, if I'm a team lead or maybe centralized administrator, I can now start to very quickly onboard events, metrics, as well as logs. The beautiful thing here is a custom webhook. If you have scripts or maybe events that are coming off of pipelines, as long as it's in a JSON format, within minutes, you can now start to catch those in real time. It generates a target URL as long as you have some sort of authentication to post, meaning that's built into I would say the source of those events. Then you can quickly map to what we call the alert fields, and then anything else is kind of thrown into a JSON what we call additional info, which can be hugely valuable for tags, for filters, for decoration, as well as clustering, right? So this is all kind of a little bit of a view there. We talked about also the alert automations, meaning that maybe I'm a team lead, I have some administration responsibilities. I can now start to create basic logic for sources that I'm onboarding to ignore. I can enrich. I could start extracting and kind of changing, for example, descriptions. I can create normalized tags. I can do enrichment from the platform, all through, think of it as a wizard, all within the service operations workspace. And then even the grouping itself, being able to not only build correlation very simply based on normalized tags, but then also being able to simulate those as well. So looking at data that's already in the platform and then being able to test that immediately, right? To see, oh, that correlation pattern which may be very unique, or maybe it's global. I can really control when that pattern should be executed or implemented, but I can test that even before we decide to make it active. And then I would say the last thing here, and I'll wrap it up here really quick. What I'll do is let me just going to do a quick little simulation so that we can kind of see some correlation in real time. You play some events. That's just going to one of our generic webhooks, and we can kind of see really an example of just a site outage. Nothing too exciting here, but let's see something in real time. So we have alerts coming in. This is the express list. And within a minute here, we start to see alerts starting to group, right? This is the correlation. We see some decoration here. Just wait a minute here. And we'll give you a little bit of a view into the express list and some of the I would say the efficiencies that can be gleaned from this. Okay, there we go. All right, so here we've got one correlation. There's 9 what we call secondary alerts. So it's kind of correlated based on some pattern. In this case, there's a site outage, right? If I just by clicking on this description here, and I'll let me just zip up the secondary alerts, you'll notice that we kind of get a summary of this description. We can also start to leverage our Now Assist for ITOM to give us a full, I would say, summary of the issue. In this case, there are 9 alerts, and it's telling us exactly, hey, there's a branch outage. In fact, the firewall, there in fact is a probable root cause. There was a change, a traditional change, but that all is summarized, which ends up actually in the ticket as well. And we have some other items as well, indicating the probable root cause. We can delve into some of the tags for decoration as well as filtering. But again, since we're running out of time, I would say if there's some interest or you haven't seen this from the ServiceNow platform perspective, or this is the first time you're seeing this, I would definitely reach out to maybe your ServiceNow account manager and definitely get more information, not only of what's available today, but what's coming in probably less than a month and a half, and then what's going to be delivered. It's pretty exciting in 2025. So with that said, Matt, I think I'm going to let you wrap it up, and I appreciate the time. Let's go from there.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And it's been fun getting to talk about some of these things. Thanks, KP, for joining us and taking the time to go through it. It's a lot of really useful information. Hope it's been useful for those who are on the call. And thanks for the good questions and things. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or if there's anything else we can do to help. We'll look forward to keeping the conversation going. Thank you.